I will be covering the 2028 presidential election for the next 4 years. Here's another early prediction video of the Electoral College. Looking at the betting odds, J.D. Vance is the favorite to win the Republican nomination, with Gavin Newsom the plurality favorite in the Democrat primary to win the Democrat nomination, with Josh Shapiro in second place. We'll be using both of these candidates for the hypothetical matchup. Looking at the map from the last election, we will see any margin between 0 and 1 is a tilt margin. Anything between 1 and 5 is a lean margin. Anything between 6 or 5 to 10 is going to be a likely margin. Anything above 10 points is in the safe Republican or Democrat column. So starting out the video, we have Utah, Idaho, Wyoming, Montana, the Dakotas, all of Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana, West Virginia, Missouri, and South Carolina in the safe Republican column, alongside Nebraska's first, Maine's second congressional district, Alaska, as well as the states of Iowa, Ohio, Texas, and Florida. These were all safe states in the 2024 election. Donald Trump winning the state of Texas by 13.7% due to the southern border counties kind of moving even more Republican than before, and major city areas really moving towards the former president due to the border crisis. The state of Florida, a 13.1 percentage point win for Donald Trump in the Sunshine State. He moved Miami-Dade massively to the right and improved in the Panhandle and the Central Florida area as well. And so looking at this, including the shifts in the Rust Belt in the states of Iowa and Ohio, somebody like a J.D. Vance would actually be able to improve on Donald Trump's margin given the current political circumstances as of right now. We will see in Nebraska that right now the first district is a 16-point win in this forecast. We also see Maine's second is a 16-point win as well. Looking at the safe Democrat states, California, Oregon, Washington will all be over 10 points. California, an 18-point win in this forecast, just 2 points more Republican than the last election. J.D. Vance would continue to improve in some rural as well as some city areas in the state of California. Oregon, we would see, would kind of shift a little bit to the right, only an 11-point win for, Gavin Newsom. The greater Idaho area would more than likely shift really Republican, with somebody like a J.D. Vance being the candidate. And the state of Washington is exactly a 15-point win, which is 3 points closer than what it was in the last cycle. J.D. Vance, unlike Donald Trump, can actually appeal to credentialed voters, meaning college-educated voters, a little bit more than certain other demographics that Donald Trump could. J.D. Vance is more friendly to that type of electorate, but still does well with the base as of right now. Gavin Newsom is particularly weak and has a very poor record in the state of California, as it's losing population, and the economic and safety conditions in the state are at an all-time low. Looking at other safe states on the map, DC, Maryland, Massachusetts, and Vermont will all be in the safe Democrat column, including the state of Hawaii and Maine's first congressional district, only giving Gavin Newsom 106 safe Electoral College votes. Even states like Colorado, Illinois, and New York are not even in this category due to J.D. Vance's improvements on Donald Trump's performance in the general election. The state of North Carolina will be a 5.7 percentage point win. Donald Trump won the state by 3.2. Vance would be able to improve in the western side of the state and continue to gain in the northern eastern part of the state, where it's been moving to the right ever since the early 2000s. This is an area that has been slowly moving more and more Republican, and we're going to see that development occur over time in the state of North Carolina. Looking at the state of Georgia, we actually see here a 3.8 percentage point win for J.D. Vance in the state of Georgia. Some of those, Atlanta suburbs will probably continue to move left. Some of them will max out, and J.D. will more than likely improve in some of these rural areas in the state of Georgia, marking a more rightward shift as the state progresses. Looking at the state of Arizona, another key battleground, 5.5 percentage point margin, the same margin from this cycle. I think JD Vance would probably lose a point in Maricopa, but kind of make up for it for the rest of the state and actually get, Pima and Santa Cruz possibly under 10 points in the next general election. So it's practically a wash in the state of Arizona. Nevada, on the other hand, is going to get a little bit more Republican, a 7.3 percentage point when JD Vance would win Washoe and Clark County against Gavin Newsom, marking the state in the likely Republican territory and actually being one of the most Republican states on the map. Colorado, a 9.5 point win for Gavin Newsom. He wouldn't do very well in the state compared to modern expectations. Harris won the state by 11 points. He would more than likely underperform in the Denver area, and Vance would continue to gain in some of these rural areas as he outperforms in the Great Plains and Appalachia. Looking at some other likely states, Illinois will be in the likely category at just 8.9% for, Gavin Newsom. It was a 10.9 percentage point win, so a 2-point shift to the right. Vance would improve in Chicago and in some of the Appalachian parts of the state of Illinois, moving it further and further into the Republican column. Looking at some of these other states, state of Connecticut and Delaware, as well as Rhode Island, would all be likely margins under 10 points, with Rhode Island just being a 7-point win in this election for Gavin Newsom. Somebody like Gavin Newsom would really underperform in the Northeast given his big lack of appeal with Catholic voters. That movement for JD Vance would continue in the 2028 election, and it would very well reflect in the New England area. The state of New York in this election would just be a 7-point victory for Gavin Newsom. The New York City area would continue to shift right, as well as the state as a whole kind of moving right as well. But the New York City area would continue to move Republican in this hypothetical matchup. We even see in a place like Minnesota a very, very close election, a 1.2 percentage point win. Last time it was a 4.2 percentage point win. JD would probably improve in the Hennepin area and continue to grow in some of the rural parts of Minnesota, but would slowly max out his support, and Gavin would kind of hold on. New Mexico, just a 2.3 percentage point win in the state of New Mexico. Again, this state was just a 6-point win. Republican registrations were going up. As of reported last month, Republicans net gain registration in the state of New Mexico of the month of November. So very, very interesting developments. Virginia would get about 2 points closer, about 2.5 points closer than the last election. Again, some of the Appalachia movement, places like Kentucky, Tennessee, West Virginia will continue to get more Republican. The rural areas are really going to push the state further and further into that Republican column. And Vance would improve in some of the areas, particularly Virginia Beach. He'd kind of make some gains in that part of Virginia. And we see New Jersey, a very, very close state, just a 2.7 percentage point win, actually closer than Virginia in this scenario. A key battleground state in this election would be very, very competitive in 2028 and could possibly be a surprise flip for a JD Vance come 2028. A state like New Hampshire would be just a 1.4 percentage point win. It would narrow up by about 1.4% from the last election, but would continue to trend to the left of the nation as more Boston implants and college educated voters are moving to the state. And Maine would actually shift about 4 points or so to the Republican column. Somebody like Vance would appeal a lot more in a state like Maine than somebody like a Donald Trump would, and that's why these states would be so competitive. Wisconsin and Michigan would be in the lean Republican column, almost in the likely column of more than likely Vance would improve in some of the working class areas and continue to gain in some of these rural areas and even some of the suburban areas. He kind of reversed some trends in the WOW counties. Michigan, he'd do very well in Wayne. He'd probably crack like maybe 35-40% there. He'd win Macomb by like 20 points. He'd continue to grow in some of the rural areas. So that's really where you would see that huge support come out. And in the state of Pennsylvania, he moves it into the likely Republican column here. As of right now, he'd more than likely continue to gain in the eastern part of the state where a lot of the Catholics and the tri-state area of New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania kind of are. He'd continue to gain in that area as of right now. and Nebraska's 2nd congressional district would be in the lean Democrat column as of right now. J.D. Vance would score 312 electoral college votes to Gavin's 226, the same electoral vote count from this cycle where Donald Trump beat Kamala Harris. Never in U.S. history has the same exact map occurred, so more than likely J.D. Vance would pick off one of these battleground states or more in 2028, or would just entirely lose the election. Make sure to stay tuned for more 2028 updates. I will be doing more videos on the midterms as well as the Virginia governorship and New Jersey governorships coming up in 2025. Hit the like button and subscribe for more content just like this, and we will see you guys in the next video.